Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. How'd you do this last week? Did you use the talents and the things that God has given you to serve Him? Did you let God use you for His honor and glory? Boys and girls, I had forgotten to mention it last week, but when I'd been preparing for it, I was seeing how simple a smile is. Boys and girls, do you know you can use that smile to be an encouragement to those around you? I know when I'm teaching, I appreciate the students who smile back at me, or the students in the hallway when I pass them and they smile back or wave or say hi. Boys and girls, our talents are even that small. Okay, it's not that hard to smile at someone. I forgot to mention that last week. But this week, as you go about your week, make sure that you smile at those around them and share the joy that God has given you. Well, we were in the first part of 2 Kings chapter 4 last week. We talked about the miracle of the widow woman being able to pour the oil into many different containers. Well, we're picking up in chapter 4. We're in verse 8. We're going to cover 8 through 27. But Elisha, as he goes about, he travels, he ministers to people. There's a lady, a Shunammite lady, who talks with her husband. She's like, hey, every time the prophet comes around, he stops, we give him a meal. Why don't we build him a room? Why don't we add on to our house so that we can be a blessing to the prophet, to Elisha? Well, the lady and her husband agree. And so Elisha, next time he comes around, he stays there, and he's got Gehazi with him, and he asks the lady, well, how can we return your goodness? How can we return favor? And she's like, oh, it's not a big deal. You don't have to do anything. It's fine. And so Elisha talks with Gehazi, and he's like, what can we do? And they decided that this lady had not been blessed with a child. She did not have any children. And in that culture, boys and girls, it was a very big deal for them to have children. So Elisha tells her, I'm going to, through God is going to, because of your kindness to me, bless you with a child. In verse 16, and he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thy handmaid. She's like, I'm kind of past this. It's not going to happen. Verse 17, and the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. So boys and girls, this lady who didn't think she was ever going to have a child was able to have a child. That was a miracle. Well, this boy, he grows up, things are going great, and one day he goes out to the field, his dad's working in the field, he goes out, he talks to his dad, and then, oh man, his head, it just starts hurting, like really bad. Like he's never felt pain like this before. Verse 19, and he said unto his father, my head, my head. And he said to a lad, carry him to his mother. Verse 20, and when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. Boys and girls, the lady had said to Elisha, don't lie to me, like, you know, about having a son. And then she gets the son, and then the son dies. Boys and girls, I can't even imagine the grief that this lady is going through as her son is laying there in her arms, sitting on her knees, now dead. Boys and girls, thankfully, the story does not end there, okay? God had much more in store for this family. Verse number 21, and she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. She goes up to the room that they had prepared for Elisha, lays the boy on the bed, and then she closes the door and walks out. And she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come again. So she calls out to her husband, I need to go see the man of God. Send somebody who can take me. Send me a donkey so we can go. And he, meaning the dad, said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? Is it neither new moon nor Sabbath? And she said, it shall be well. Boys and girls, her son is dead. The dad doesn't even know yet. And she tells him it's going to be well. Does that show her faith in God? The faith and belief that she had that Elisha, with God's power, was going to be able to raise her son from the dead. She doesn't even tell the dad that the son is dead. Verse 24. Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, drive and go forward, slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. Okay, so ride as hard as you can. Don't go easy because I'm a lady. Okay, get there unless I tell you to slow down. Verse 25. And she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, and to meet her, and say unto her, is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, it is well. Boys and girls, she's experiencing such grief, and yet she has such faith to say, it is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. It's like something is wrong with the lady, and I don't know. Something is bothering her. Well, she tells him about the boy, how the boy had died, and Elisha says to Gehazi, go, take my staff, put it across the boy's face so he can be healed. And the lady's like, no, Elisha, you have to come. I will not leave if you don't go with me. Well, they send Gehazi on ahead. He does put the staff on the boy's face, and nothing happens. Nothing happens to the boy. He comes, the Shunammite woman and Elisha travel, and Gehazi comes and he meets them. He's like, nothing happened. Well, boys and girls, in verse 35, it says, then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Let me back up a little bit, boys and girls. I kind of jumped a little too far. Verse 33, or 32, and when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands, and he stretched himself unto the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. So he did it twice, boys and girls. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Boys and girls, he prayed. It didn't happen right away, but Elisha sought the Lord. He prayed to the Lord, and the Lord raised the boy from the dead. Boys and girls, the Shunammite woman had shown kindness to Elisha in building the house, or building the room onto the house. When she was in trouble, Elisha showed her kindness. You reap what you sow. She had shown kindness, and kindness was shown back to her. She had reaped kindness. Boys and girls, you also reap more than you sow. She had given, Peter, she had given a room to Elisha, and then God, through Elisha, had given her a child. Boys and girls, I think we can all acknowledge that a child is more important than a room, has more value. But then when that child gets sick, that child was raised from the dead. Boys and girls, if we kind of look at that, we can say that the lady showed one kindness to Elisha, and through Elisha, God showed her 2 kindnesses, giving her the child and then raising the child from the dead. Boys and girls, you reap what you sow, but you also reap more than you sow. If you think about a plant, and you plant a seed, and you get so much more from that. Boys and girls, that works 2 ways. She had sown kindness, and that's what she reaped. If we sow negative things, boys and girls, we'll reap negative. But we don't want to end on a negative note. So think about it this week. Who can you be kind to? Who can you show kindness to? Boys and girls, I've seen this principle over and over in my own life. Not that I'm perfect, but when I do what God asks me to do, when I'm sowing and doing the things He wants to, boys and girls, the blessings abound. You reap more and more than you could ever ask for or dream of or think of, because God desires to take care of His children. God desires to bless His children. Boys and girls, God wants to bless you. What are you going to do? Now, we don't only obey because of that. Don't get me wrong there, okay? But we should be desiring to do what God wants us to do. I hope this week that you'll show kindness to those around you. And next week, we'll talk about Thanksgiving.